circumstances during this pandemic, and I know you all have felt this. Barriers to employment are also higher than ever for most employees. So how can you, the employers, make sure employees are being taken care of, staying safe and well, and managing their mental health? This webinar is going to explore how to have conversations around mental health in the workplace, the importance of the conversation, and how it can impact the overall productivity and retention of your workforce. So right now, with that introduction, I'd like to hand it off to the capable hands of Ashley McCarty and Sonia Osman, who are my colleagues in the Recovery Center at the Kentucky Chamber's Workforce Center. Go ahead.
Hey, thanks, Dak. Good morning, everybody. It's glad to see you here. I'm excited because we have two Jeremy Faulkners on the screen. That just warms my heart. Like we don't have, it's not enough. We have to have one. We're going to have two. That is so exciting, Jeremy.
The only thing better than one is two.
Exactly.
Thing about that is, Jeremy, I just texted you is I tried to log in under the link that you gave me. Will not let me change the name. So
it's quite all right, but we had to point that out because we just adore Jeremy. So
thank you.
My name is Sonia Osman, and I am one of the business liaisons, and Ashley's going to laugh because I say that funny, at the Workforce Center at the Kentucky Chamber. Just a little bit about myself. I have about 16 years of HR experience in the construction, manufacturing, and retail industries. I hold a bachelor's degree in business administration from Murray State. I also serve as the Workforce Readiness Director on the Kentucky SHRM Council. I'm a past president for the Four Rivers SHRM chapter here in Paducah and continue my active membership with them. I'm a huge fan of SHRM. I also recently, just this year, was nominated and was the recipient to a 2020 Lyle Hannah Spirit Award. And what that is it's like a HR Professional of the Year award across the state of Kentucky, which was a very humbling recognition considering there's a lot of shoes to fill prior to me accepting this award. So I'm going to kick it over to Ashley and let her introduce herself and we'll get started.
If Ashley can get the PowerPoint set up. Sorry about that, guys. But I am Ashley McCarty. Sonia lists all those things that she does and all those awards. And I usually just say, and I have a bachelor's in psychology and I have 3 dogs. That's the extent of my. So, no, you guys will hear a little bit more about me throughout the presentation. I'm pumped that you guys are here. I'm excited. This is going to be great. So thank you for joining us.
Just a couple of housekeeping things, guys. If you want to comment or ask a question, you can either unmute yourself or just put it in the chat. We do have someone that's going to be watching the chat box, but we will also watch the chat box too. Also, if you click on your participant button at the bottom, there's a nonverbal pass bar that you can use as well that we'll be watching as we go through the presentation. But without further ado, we're just going to get going. So today we're going to learn about Are You Okay? Addressing mental health in the workplace. And there's a reason why that this slide deck has a really unique title. And you will learn that through an inspiring story as we go through the program today.
All right, so question for you guys. You can put it in the chat. FYI, this webinar, this presentation is active. So question for you guys. So if I were to ask each one of you to describe what someone looks like that's struggling with a mental illness or a mental health disorder, maybe depression, what would you say that individual looks like? Throw it in the chat, wherever. Raise your hand, unmute yourself.
Oh, is that my time clock? Yeah, probably. It's pretty quick.
Okay, we've got 3, just like everyone else.
Exciting.
And guys, can you mute yourself if you don't mind? I think a few people are not muted. There are typically no physical signs. All right. Well, so some people say sad, crying, they look empty. those are all facial expressions and they're all symptoms, but you can't see a mental illness like a broken bone. That doesn't make it any less than, but there's not one face to a mental illness or a mental health disorder. So let's look at these pictures here, because we talk about the face of mental health. So you can look at someone and tell if they have a mental illness. Like I said, the face of a mental health disorder can be deceptive, hidden by wide eyes and cheerful expressions, big smile. And they're forced in place to avoid detection from others. They don't want others to know that they're struggling. Maybe a lot of times people from the outside looking in think everything's great. They've got so much going for them. This individual, obviously, I don't know if you figured it out yet or not, but this individual is me. I struggle with a mental health disorder, a couple mental health disorders, but you can live well with mental health disorders. These pictures show from a child growing up how I would hide that I was struggling. You can see they're all smiles. And we see that a lot. Sonia will talk about it maybe later. I'm not for sure if it's in this presentation, but social media. Everyone hides behind those smiles when they're struggling inside. And I have to point out that that bottom picture that's in black and white of me at the very bottom, I'm very proud to say that I am a suicide survivor. That picture was taken about a week and a half before my very first suicide attempt. Notice I said very first, it wasn't my last, but I'm very humbled and very blessed and very grateful that that God was not done with me yet and that I am a suicide survivor. Next slide, we talk about the face of mental health again. So this is a picture of someone who struggles with mental health and it's obviously untreated. This individual is self-medicated to alleviate emotional pain. So there's many medications that will alleviate physical pain, like opioids, for example. This individual had surgeries and got addicted to opioids. She was a pharmaceutical sales representative for about 8 years. She was number 5 out of 10,000 sales representatives, number 5. Then, like I said, she got addicted to opioids, started missing work, calling in late, not showing up, not meeting goals. And eventually she went on a business trip to Las Vegas with her company and tried to commit suicide. Here is the title of this presentation. This individual was wheeled out through the casino, the Bellagio in Las Vegas, taken to the hospital where they brought her back and she screamed, "But I wanted to die, but I wanted to die." Then she went to the psych ward for 2 weeks and no one asked her from her organization the simple question, "Are you okay?" The title of this presentation. Are you okay? No one asked that. Obviously, this individual was struggling. She was expected to come back home and then went back to work, but then a couple weeks later, she was let go and lost her job. The disease is progressive. She moved on to methamphetamines, got arrested, went to jail, and went to treatment. But this individual now has over 7 years in long-term recovery. Actually, this individual that you see here that's struggling with mental health disorder and substance use disorder is me. July 20th, 2013, I was given a new life. I didn't get my old life back. I got a new life. And like I said, I'm in long-term recovery for 7 years. I struggle with co-occurring disorders, as most individuals do that struggle with mental health or substance use disorder. They struggle with both 50% of the time. So I'm very blessed to be here. I'm very blessed to share my story. There'll be more throughout the presentation, but thank you for letting me share.
The story is always inspiring, no matter where you are, who you are, or what situation you're in. It always makes you think about, am I working with someone close to me like that? Is someone in my family like that struggling with that? And today you'll learn how you can recognize those signs and those symptoms and indicators that can help you to open up those dialogues. So in the beginning, we're going to give you some stats on mental health in the workplace. So 1 in 5 U.S. adults age 18 or older 18.3% or 44.7 million people. So let's think how large that is, have reported a mental illness in 2016. So if we're looking at that right now, we have like about 40 people in this room. So that's about 8 people are struggling with this.
I'm one. I always say that. I'm one of them. And I wanted to say that, I said that I'm a suicide survivor and I'm still here. And it's because of my purpose. And my purpose is being fulfilled here today by sharing my story, and Sonia and myself talking to you, educating you about this, because this is why we have to start the conversation about a mental illness, a mental health disorder. We have to openly talk about it. We have to break barriers. We have to fight stigma. It may not be preventable, but it is treatable. And so as the business community, as organizations, in the workplace, we have to start talking about this. We have to start asking individuals, are you okay?
So by addressing this mental health issues in the workplace, employers can reduce healthcare costs for businesses and employees. And how we can do that is if we talk to our business and our benefits administrators, or those who we work with for our benefit plans, and talk about combining behavioral healthcare and behavioral services together. That will help not only your business, but the United States save $37.6 to $67.8 billion on an annual basis. So let's think about how much money that is and how many people we can actually help that will have a more comfort level in talking and maybe getting treatment.
Okay, only 11% of employees discussed a recent mental health problem with their line manager. Why do you guys think that is? You can unmute yourself, throw it in the chat. Why are employees not discussing issues with their managers, with their supervisors, with HR, anyone within the company?
Embarrassed.
They're embarrassed. Okay. Why
Negative stigma.
embarrassed? Let's add on to that a little bit.
I think there's a certain negative stigma behind it that you don't want your employers to know about.
Exactly.
Yes.
Stigma. Exactly. I know I didn't come forward whenever I was working pharmaceutical sales, because one reason is the culture was not there. The culture did not allow me to come forward because this was not talked about. You did not talk about this. Everyone turned their head to it. It was swept under the rug, and it was because of stigma. So that culture within your organization has to be there. Concern about job stability, because we don't talk about it enough. There's stigma that they can't perform. Everyone else seems to be okay. I must be the only one. Yes, all these things in the chat are exactly why.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I want to share something with you before you go into this next slide, Ashley. Is
Okay.
We got some, and I'm going to share it throughout the presentation. We have various stats from some recent COVID studies that they did. In one of those studies, they asked individuals, what colleagues would you feel comfortable speaking to in regards to your mental health? And this, it talks about only 21% said that they would talk to their supervisors, hence the last slide. 35% said their coworkers. 6% said subordinates. Now, this is the most astounding stat. It's 55% say no colleagues. And this is the reason why, is because they don't feel that they can disclose. They don't feel that the stigma surrounding that in the workplace. And as Ashley said, the culture has to be conducive in order for them to have that trust and confidence to come forward and say, I'm struggling with this without judgment, and knowing that someone's going to give them a direction or guidance on what is that next step and how do you help me and how do I keep this, as I'm coming to work every day, I keep focus on what I'm doing and keep safe and be productive and not miss any work.
So here's some very important factors when an employee is deciding not to disclose that they struggle with a disability to an employer. So whether that's substance use disorder or mental health disorder. So simply a desire for privacy, about 28% just want privacy. And then 53.8% feel they're going to be viewed differently. And I always emphasize that, I am not my disorders. I am not my illness. That is not who I am. I should not be defined by that. But individuals feel that way. That's why they don't talk about it. Treated differently, 57.8%. This one is sad to me. Supervisor may not be supportive. 60% will not disclose they are struggling because they think their supervisor will not be supportive. Been there, done that. And then at the very bottom, the employer may focus on the disability, 62%, they think that. And then they also think, someone put this in the chat just a second ago, risk of being fired or not hired or not moving up. So 73% feel that way. 76% of line managers believe that they are responsible for employee well-being, but only 22% have received training. Let's start with the first statistic or the first number there. So why do you guys feel, maybe you are a manager or a supervisor. So why do you believe that these managers and supervisors feel responsible for their employee well-being? Why do you guys think that? Or put in the chat if you guys feel that way. Do you guys feel responsible for your employees' well-being? Throw it out in the chat or unmute yourself if you don't care. Something to think about. Do we not? Why do we? I'm waiting for the chat to blow up. No, does no one feel responsible for their employees' well-being? Let's see. Yes, but it is not the norm. Okay, so it's not the norm to, okay, yes, because our culture supports a family atmosphere. Yes. Okay, because to be a compassionate individual, a compassionate person, you're going to care about your employees' well-being. The part about this, only 22% are receiving training. So someone comes forward to you, talks about these things. If only 22% are receiving training, the supervisor manager doesn't know what to say. They don't know how to handle the situation. I come forward and I say, I am so depressed. I am so depressed. Supervisors or managers that don't have training, well, they don't know what to say about that. Whether you're a supervisor or manager, maybe just an individual in general, we just don't know how to respond to that. That's why we offer training.
Mm-hmm. Tiffany said it right. She said it's the right thing to care. It's the right thing to care, but at times we don't know what to do or how to help them. You're exactly on point, Tiffany. I mean, and that's what this presentation is about, to give you that information to take back with you to implement into your culture and try to change that environment around you. While 76% of line managers feel responsible, 49% say that they would appreciate just basic training in the common mental health conditions, just like minor definitions of what this might be or what they might be seeing or understanding. And I look at it like this. I mean, I've been in management for a while, and I relate to Ashley's story in the fact that she was the number 5 out of 10,000. So to me, that's a rock star, man. They are really doing things in your business and they're making things happen. And all of a sudden, she just continues to decline and nobody really opens up that dialogue. I mean, the question is very legal to the fact of, are you okay? I mean, it's just like you said, it's the right thing to do. So that question was not asked. There was no questions asked, so nobody really understood what was going on or why. It was just, okay, we got to get rid of this issue. There she goes. She loses her whole entire career that she put her heart and soul in. So as managers, we really need to understand and deem that. And if we need some training we don't understand, you find somebody, talk to someone in your organization and ask how that can be, how you may not be the only manager that thinks that. And HR has a big part of that as well.
So what are some signs that a team member may be experiencing a mental health disorder, a mental health issue, their mental health is unwell? And this can be for family, friends, employees, supervisors, managers, whoever. So continuous changes to physical functioning and or appearance, continuous changes. So I always tell this little tidbit about myself. When my mental health is unwell, because there's a difference between mental health and a mental illness. So mental health, everyone has mental health, just like physical health with a mental illness. But when I am unwell with my mental health, then it's hard for me to even get out of bed and take a shower and get dressed and change clothes and find something to eat. Everything's a struggle. So therefore your physical functioning and or appearance, continuous changes, and they're not positive. Sustained changes to cognitive processes. It's hard to even put thoughts together. It's hard to complete tasks, to work in general, because your cognitive process is being changed continuously. Constant changes to social interaction. Maybe you have someone who's a social butterfly. Now they're isolating, especially during this time right now that we're going through. Lots of individuals are isolating, and that is not good at all for one's mental health. Inappropriate behavior, that can be different for every mental health disorder, but maybe an individual just starts behaving like they never have before. Maybe they become defensive or something like that. That can be an inappropriate behavior. They become defensive every time you talk to them. That's an inappropriate behavior. It's a different behavior than what they were like before. And then frequent absences or reduced work engagement. That's exactly what I did whenever I was struggling. If you look at this list and you think of physical functioning, appearance, those changing, your cognitive process changing, social interaction, inappropriate behavior, do you honestly think that an individual who's struggling with all these things wants or feels like going to work? No. And if they are at work, there's reduced work engagement. But what would happen if they had someone to talk to about this? If they told someone I'm struggling, and they got the help they needed, the recovery they needed. So think about that.
So let's talk about those signs we've been alluding to. First of all, personality change. This is a sudden or gradual change in the way that they are typically behave. Everything changes about them, their personality, their thoughts, their opinions, their feelings. Agitated, problems controlling their temper. They get irritable very suddenly, just small things just kind of set them off. Withdrawn, they isolate from their family and friends. They stop participating in activities that they normally enjoy. They pull away from all of their social circles and their social support systems. Poor self-care. They stop taking care of themselves, or self-engage in risky behavior or use poor judgment. And Ashley alluded to that, where she said sometimes it's so hard to get out of bed, to even get in the shower, to get oneself ready, to be able to go to work, and even to get to work to complete those tasks. And then hopelessness is finding anything to hope about. Overwhelmed, worthless. They think that the world would be a better place without them. So they contemplate suicide. They have negative thoughts. So what should a manager do if they suspect a team member is experiencing mental health? And this one, just much like an HR individual does their due diligence for an investigation. It would be the same in this type of situation. Perform due diligence before approaching a team member. And what that consists of is look at past performance reviews, just performance by observing. Look at any kind of disciplinary actions that might have happened with this individual. Any type of maybe conflict with coworkers or management team or what have you, because that's going to give you a big picture of what is maybe going on, or how to tailor that conversation and open up that dialogue. Encourage communication with compassion and kindness, because at times they're going to be really resistant to share because of trust or confidentiality. We find that a lot. So they need to have that trust before they're going to open up. And if they don't open up at that time, assure them that you will be there when they're ready to speak. And we will help them, guide them and direct them in whatever way that they need to go. And then consider reasonable workplace adjustments, such as safe spaces or telehealth, or can they have additional breaks to do a telehealth conference call with a counselor or a therapist. So there's different ways that you can adjust that. And there's very cool, innovative ways that I've been looking at people in these situations, especially with remote work and talking about this via either phone call or telehealth. Statistics for you. So 2019 to 2020, we learned individuals that have dealing with anxiety tripled from 8.1% to 25.5%. And then depression quadrupled from 6.5% to 24.3%. So that was 2019 to June of 2020. So think about that for a minute.
These are some signs and symptoms. And as I was looking at this, I was looking at the signs and symptoms that I was experiencing whenever, like before I tried to commit suicide. So I was struggling with substance use disorder, struggling with mental health disorder, and then tried to commit suicide. So worry and fear disrupts daily life. Check. I had that. Worried about everything. Fear of everything. And I want you to realize that it says disrupts daily life. So some of you guys might say, well, I worry about things, or I fear some certain things. No, this is when it disrupts your day-to-day life, your daily activities. And then the next one was excessive use of alcohol, tobacco, or drugs. Check. I started using opioids and using them to alleviate emotional pain. So therefore, excessive use of that. Difficult interacting. Check for me too. Back then, whenever I was struggling with substance use disorder, it was difficult for me to interact. I was a very angry individual. I was very, I would start arguments with everyone. I was very angry. I was so unwell. I was so sad and felt alone. And I was miserable. I wanted everyone else to be miserable as well. So they start doing that. Suicidal thoughts and behaviors. Check. I tried to commit suicide twice while working for this company. Changes in sleep habits and feelings, inability to function, low energy, no interest in anything, mood, behavioral changes, uncontrollable emotions that disrupt daily life. They cannot control their emotions. And appetite or weight change. It could be gaining a bunch of weight, losing a bunch of weight. It depends on, like, say if you're talking about substance use disorder, the type of drug or the drug of abuse that someone is abusing. And then if you're talking about depression or anxiety and mental health disorder, someone might self-medicate by eating. Someone might self-medicate by not eating. So that appetite or weight change. When talking about depression, it interferes with a person's ability to complete physical tasks 20% of the time. Physical tasks, 20%. Reduces cognitive performance about 35% of the time. Now, like I said earlier, if if you've got someone that's struggling with depression and their job task is being affected, their cognitive performance is being affected, how effective do you think they are at work? Or do you think they're getting up and going to work? I know whenever I struggle with depression, I don't feel like going to work, but I do work through it. And I do go to work because it's my purpose, it's my job, it's my passion to do this. And that's another thing to emphasize is just because someone gets in recovery for their mental health disorder doesn't mean that there's not periods of times when that depression creeps back up, or that anxiety creeps back up, or they have some symptom from their bipolar disorder. That's why we still have to ask these individuals, are you okay? Even if they're in therapy, even if they're in treatment, even if they're on medication, we have to ask the questions.
So I follow this organization on LinkedIn, and they really have some good information. And I noticed, I was reading an article last week, and it's called Mental Health America. And they talk about just mental health across the board. It's very good. If you're on LinkedIn, I would encourage you to look them up and follow them. And so they did a survey from January to September of 2020. 1.5 million people participated in a survey. And the results indicated to them that since the beginning of the pandemic, over 80%, which is 1.2 million, of these individuals who took the survey scored a moderate to severe symptoms of depression. So we really need to understand what that looks like in our workplaces. And as this slide takes us to that, it indicates that 61% of our workers say that their productivity was affected by their mental health. And then 37% of the workers said that their work environments contributed to their symptoms. So I'm going to ask you a question. I want you to just kind of engage with me here. Why do you think these two percentages are very high for individuals in the workplace? I mean, you may struggle with this as well, but why do you think that individuals say that this affects their mental health, their productivity, and the environment? Are we sleeping out there?
I'll start. I'll throw one out there and then you guys come after me. Talking about work environment contributes to their symptoms. For example, like a lot of times if, sometimes I'm okay, but sometimes it affects my mental health. Like if we're in a group and we're each working on something different, but we're all together and maybe people are talking or doing this or talking to me or talking to each other, it affects my concentration. It affects me being able to successfully work. And that contributes to my symptoms of like the ADHD because, but like at the chamber where we work, they have workspaces where we can go to where I can go for a minute and be by myself and collect my thoughts and then come back together. And that's so helpful. And we encourage that within organizations. I think you got some in the chat now, Sonia.
Yes, there's all kinds of stuff going on, and it's the same. It's like the isolation from COVID, it's past relationships. It's exactly what I was going to say, because first of all, it's the stigma surrounding the topic, first of all. Then it is burnout. It's stress. It's setting those high, and this one was up a few. It's setting those expectations for oneself that it may be higher than normal or than where it should be. And then the last piece is some individuals are not, they don't understand how to handle difficult conversations or difficult feedback on performance or reviews, or if something's going on within their production. It's really hard sometimes for people to understand that. So with those conversations, I think it's the delivery and given the whole scope of what's happening to make them understand how those opportunities can be turned into a positive impact in their job task.
So you heard me talk about culture and supporting mental health at work. How do we do that? How do you guys do that? How do you change your culture? What are some action steps that you need to take? Don't worry, Sonia will tell you.
That's right. That's what we're here for. So first action step, provide mental health assessment tools. And I talk about two in general, and that would be wellness programs and stress assessments. And of course, wellness programs are very good in all respect. It all depends on how it's implemented, how it's communicated, how it's promoted for your employees to participate in those programs. At the chamber, we have lots of those, and I for one do participate in a lot of those things, but they offer just a variety of things for us. And stress assessments, and I didn't realize until I started like researching this, how this could help a person, because it kind of gets you in a different situations, and it measures how you affect your feelings and what those stress levels are. And how to, why do you get to that point during a stressful situation, and how do you come down from that? And they also have a self assessment, with a self-stress assessment, say that 3 times, online that you can go through. It's very interesting. I like that kind of stuff, but if you are one of those people that really feed off that kind of thing, I would encourage you just to go check those things out, even for your employees. Offer health insurance with no or low out-of-pocket costs for mental health medications and counseling. And I know there's a lot of things surrounding this with new regulations. And so make sure that you check with your benefit administrators and your benefit plan designers on this specific one, because how you can use that to your advantage in your business bottom line. And then employers can use data to track that progress and measure the effects. And that's about, getting that utilization report information and using that data to understand what your employees like and what they don't like, and how to change that culture to be conducive for that, to be successful.
Hey, Sonia, we have
Yes.
a question from Kay. Who do you partner with for assessments and counseling?
We don't do that. My research when I went into research and to look for these action steps to offer best practices and the things that we offer here on this presentation. But there are really reputable companies out there that when I did my research, have really good success rates. And I would just encourage you to research it and look at those, because it's different fit for different industries.
Hey, Moss, I'm so excited to see your name on here. we will talk about this. Just
Thank
call
you,
me.
Ashley.
I know, I saw your name. I was like, oh, I love Kay. So good. Sorry.
Yeah, we're in Maysville, in a small rural community. So, finding those resources isn't always easy. But thanks for your presentation so far. It's interesting.
Thank you, Kay. But we'll talk about this. We'll find someone that you can partner with. Okay, I love this. Other action steps. So basically brochures, flyers. So these flyers, like this one is maintaining mental wellness. We have them on stigma. We have them on substance use disorder, employee engagement. You can either print these out, because they're on the website, the Kentucky Comeback website, under the Employer Resource Guide. We will talk more about the Kentucky Comeback website and the Employer Resource Guide in just a little bit, but that's where these are hosted. You can print them out, hang them up in the break room, water fountain. You can, they're PDF files, so you can put them in an email, send them out in monthly newsletters, say to your employees. We just had training with an organization, a company, and in their cafeteria break room, they have TVs all the way around it. So they're going to use these flyers, put them up on the TV, so that when individuals are in there in the break room, they can see these flyers and see things about substance use disorder. health, because as someone who struggles with this, if I work for an organization and I see flyers up about mental health or substance use disorder, I see that culture, like Sonia said, is conducive, and I can talk about these things. I can come forward. So that's why I hang them up. So I suggest you utilize these resources. We'll tell you a little bit more about the employer resource guide in a minute.
Yeah. Hey, Zach, Tiffany Jones wanted to know, it's Kentucky Comeback, Tiffany and Jack. Can you just put that link in there real quick so that
Yeah,
they can
that'd be
have that? But we'll put it in there again
Yep.
at the end of the session as well. But yes, it is, Kay, it is the Kentucky Comeback website, and it's called the Employer Resource Guide. Thank you. So host seminars and workshops that address mental health, stress management techniques like mindfulness, breathing exercises, meditation, help employees reduce anxiety, stress improvement, focus, and motivation, like this one. We have a 4-part series that we offer surrounding substance use disorder, mental health, and just exactly what we do, addiction in the brain. That we can come into your organization and offer this to your supervisors and above to your C-suites to help them understand how to manage and open up these dialogues and conversations with your employees in your organization. So we'll have our contact information at the end of the session so that you can contact us about that. Also, quiet spaces and social support networks. Quiet spaces are huge, and they've been trending for quite some time because it gives a person an outlet to go into, to wind down, to compose themselves, to maybe calm down if something is happening, or if they're struggling with something, just to get away from everybody and to be in private. And then the training piece of it, your social support networks. Do you have partners in your community that you can call upon, like counselors or therapists, that if you have someone struggling in that immediate time, that they can just either come over to your workplace or you can send your employee there to address it at that moment? I know whenever I used to be in my HR role, I have a lot of those partners in our community. If I had someone that was going through that or struggling, that I could just pick up the phone and say, can you see them? Can we schedule them an immediate appointment? And it was always worked through with that. So it's so very important to have those individuals that you can call immediately to help you with those types of situations. And then the last thing is training. You can never get enough training on these topics, especially in what's happening in our world today. And also reduce the stigma by speaking candidly about this topic and how your organization is promoting it and going to back it up.
I was going to add on that just a little bit. For example, like when Sonia talks about counseling or therapists, because I just had a conversation yesterday. His name is Jamie and he's with Dorman Products. They actually have a contract agreement with a licensed professional social worker. So the social worker is not employed by Dorman Products, but they have a contract agreement, and that social worker will come there once or twice a week, and it's for anyone that needs to talk to this individual, whether it's substance use disorder, mental health, financial problems, whatever it may be. They offer that within their organization, and it is like 100% funded through a government grant. So I just think that's amazing. And we also have another organization that's wanting to implement this. They're wanting to implement that social worker to assist or help their employees. So I just wanted to throw that out there. That's something to think about. I love this quote. This is, employers should establish a culture that does not stigmatize mental illness and encourages employees to seek help if they need. Let's look at our cultures. Does it stigmatize mental illness? Does your culture encourage your employees to get help? These individuals don't have to suffer or struggle alone. You know, just because your mental health is unwell, you do not have to suffer or struggle alone. And we always say it is okay to need help, and it is okay to not be okay. But we have to encourage these employees, these individuals, to seek help if they need it. And this is definitely not a personal failure. Just because you struggle with a mental illness, it's not a personal failure, and it does not define who you are. So creating a stigma-free culture, how do we do that? How do we destigmatize this and have that culture that's conducive? And I believe Sonia will tell you next.
Yes, I will. Mental health in the workplace and how we talk about this and how to create that stigma-free culture. And first, we see the whole person. The person's mental health condition does not define who they are. Like Ashley, I think Ashley mentioned that sometime earlier in the presentation, that she is not defined by her disease or her illness that she is going through at this present moment. And we as individuals need to do that as well, is to not define somebody by that, no, nor define them by their behavior either. Offer support. Don't be afraid to reach out if you think someone is struggling. And that's where we talk about, don't leave don't have a blind eye. If you see someone struggling, open up that conversation, open up that dialogue. Don't be afraid to step out of the box and say, okay, what can we do to help you? You may be saving a life at this time. You don't know what the shoes that they're walking in right now. And challenge misconceptions. And this one's huge to me. Speak up if you hear coworkers spread stereotypes or myths about mental illness. Mental illness, substance use disorder, whatever it is. If you hear someone spreading gossip and putting misconceptions out there, lead by example and step in, be the voice for those people who don't have a voice right now, who are trying their best to have conversations about this, but there's barriers that are stopping them from doing that. And then last but not least, mind your words. Use respectful language to avoid labels like crazy or unstable. And I always say we don't know who is around the corner when we're having conversations. You could have a conversation and someone just walking in and hearing you, and you don't know if they're dealing with this right now or if they've just had a situation where they are dealing with this. So it's so very important to watch your language and understand what that means to someone if they hear it.
Next, why do we need to end the stigma? Okay, fear of rejection and discrimination can delay the journey to recovery, delays the journey for the individual that is seeking treatment or help or counseling or therapy. Maybe they need to get started on some type of medication for their depression, for their bipolar, for their anxiety. This stigma is delaying them from doing that. Most mental health conditions are treatable. Like I said earlier, they're not preventable, but yes, they're treatable. You can live well with a mental health disorder. And less than a third of employees who need treatment get the help they need. That is so sad. Less than a third get the help they need due to stigma. And then mental health problems are the leading cause of disability across the United States. Let that sink in for a minute. The leading cause of disability. Okay, I always say this isn't fun to talk about, but it needs to be talked about. And like I said in the beginning, I am a suicide survivor. So this is sometimes difficult for me to talk about, but I know I have to share and I know I have to talk about it. But I want to emphasize that whenever I was contemplating suicide, I just never felt whole. And I have to, and I still do, have to fight every day for my mental health in ways that some individuals will never understand. But that's okay, because I fight to be well. But this instance, when I did try to commit suicide, I bent until I broke. And that's what happened. I felt so alone and like no one cared. But look at this statistic. 4.19, or put it in perspective, 10.3 million adults have serious thoughts of suicide in the United States. From an individual who's had these thoughts, I thought no one else thought those things. 10.3 million have serious thoughts of suicide. Wow. So I just wonder, I just wonder if that number keeps going up because of what we're going through right now. I know that lots of people have had serious thoughts about this. So the age-adjusted suicide rate increases when the economy is in recession and the more people are unemployed. So what this is saying is suicide goes up. There are more suicides when there's unemployment, lots of unemployment, when the jobs aren't booming. Does that sound familiar in the time we're in right now? And it falls when the economy is booming and more people have jobs. Why do you guys think that? I'll tell you why, because your job is your livelihood. It's how you take care of yourself, how you take care of your family. It's for me, it's my purpose. It's my passion. So individuals who are losing that employment, that meaningful employment, or those individuals that can't, suicide rates are going up. This next one, we find that as the country unemployment rate increases by 1 point or 1 percentage point, the opioid death rate increases 3.6%. The ER visit rate, opioid overdoses, increases 0.7. Okay, the reason I talk about this is because it's saying individuals who are unemployed, the opioid death rate, the overdoses go up. In a lot of situations, these opioid overdoses are intentional. They are intentional suicides. So that's why we talk about this. Again, the unemployment rate and suicide, because a lot of individuals, including myself, use opioids to try and commit suicide. So that's why this number is talking about the opioid death rates going up because of intentional inflicted suicides. Next, tips to keep your mental health in check. I want to say this: if you are checking in on your employees' well-being, well, you need to keep your mental health in check as well. This is not just employees that struggle with health disorder or mental illness. Supervisors, managers, CEOs of companies struggle with mental health disorders. So these are tips to keep your health and your employees' health in check.
So we're first going to talk about keeping physically fit. And that's eating healthy, well-balanced meals, exercise daily, and maintain a regular sleep pattern, maintain routines, and set goals. And I think that the last piece is so important. Maintain routines and set goals. Make sure that you don't step out of that routine that you used to doing that every day, and setting those goals and meeting those goals, because it really gives you something to look forward to. I know when Ashley and I last year was traveling a lot. Our team was across the state, just promoting our programs and working together to meet with the organizations and businesses. And when we had to pivot, we didn't change our routines. We got up every day. We went to work, even though it was in our home offices. We were on Zoom, we were on FaceTime, we were doing the same thing so that we would not get ourselves out of that lull, but we were also keeping ourselves in check in the same sense, so that we could keep that physically fit as we continue to go on every day, each and every day, with what was happening in our environment.
You say we were, Sonia. You act like we're not doing it no more. You're like, we were doing this. Like,
we're doing it now too.
We're still
more than
it.
ever.
Yeah. Okay, the next is stay connected. So isolation can intensify, I think I said this earlier, it can intensify mental health. It's vital to keep all lines of communication open to family, friends, and social networking contacts. Might I emphasize positive family members, positive friends, and positive social networking contacts. I say that right now, what we're going through, it's the time to eliminate toxic people in your life. I know I've done that. So it's time to just eliminate those people who are toxic to you, but stay connected to those who support you. They talk about quarantine. That is physical distancing. Physical distancing. It's not isolation from people. You still have to keep all lines of communication open. Then the next is value, love self. Treat yourself with kindness and respect. Avoid self-criticism. Make time for hobbies and projects. This one's very, very important to me. And I know, well, let me backtrack. When I was in treatment for my substance use disorder, I absolutely hated myself. I could not look at myself in the mirror because I could not accept the things that I had done. I had guilt, shame, and remorse. So when I was in treatment, they had me look in the mirror every morning, which, yes, I thought, and you may think too, that it was silly to do this, but look in the mirror and give myself self affirmations. So I would look in the mirror, like I'm looking at myself right now on the camera because I'm so used to looking in the mirror and saying it, but saying, you know, you are worth this, or you are strong, or your past does not define you, or you can forgive yourself. Eventually, I started to believe these things. I started to forgive myself. I started to love myself. So this is so important to love yourself, because you can never love someone else or care for someone else if you don't take care of you first and love yourself first.
So true. And back to that keeping positive, as Ashley noted 2 slides ago, a sense of hope and positive thinking, smile and see the humor in life. Research shows that laughter can boost your immune system, ease your pain, relax your body, and reduce stress. That is so very true, because we did that a lot. Our team did it, Ashley and I, whenever we worked together on projects for our program, we did that. We laughed, cried, things they were good, they were bad, they were ugly. We faced it all, but we continue to keep that positive light on, what is the main goal and what is the mission of our plan. We never did really slack from that. And I think that things, when you continue to keep positive and you have those positive influences in your life, things seem to go better. You seem to be in a better mood, and there's your goals and your routines seem to be more in line for what's going on. And then last, and ask for help. It's like Ashley said earlier, it's okay to be not to be okay, and it's okay to ask for help. So we definitely encourage the help piece, because that's what this whole presentation is about, is to open up those dialogues and to have those conversations. And again, on that keep positive thing, I did have a note down here. We like to cultivate an attitude of gratitude. And what that means is, at the end of the day, look for 3 things that you were grateful for that day and write them down. I got a very special friend of mine sent me a grateful journal, and I use that, and I write that down, and I write notes from that day of, just to cultivate that in my mind and keep it going. And now we went through all of this, and then we're gonna go into a next session to introduce you to some tools and resources that's going to help you to implement this into your culture.
Hey, Sonia,
Yes.
as we transition to the next item, there's a question that popped up, financial stress and how big of a role does that play? Do you guys have any comments about that?
I would think that plays a huge role in your mental health, just like social media plays a huge role in mental health. We all know about what happened last year with the unemployment rate, and that's a huge factor, and that's why we kind of put this presentation slide deck together, was for employers and organizations to help their employees to come back to work whenever it was time. But I think, financial it's huge, because you have a family that you have to provide for, you have children yourself. So as a person, yes, I think it's a major role in that. Anybody else got, Ashley, any comments?
Yeah, I was going to add a little story, a little quick one. When I was struggling with substance use disorder and also unmedicated, untreated for my mental health, after losing my pharmaceutical job, I'd saved up $200,000 in a savings account from working at pharmaceutical. $200,000. I can remember the day I went to the ATM to get money out, to withdraw money, and it said insufficient funds. in about 18 months, I went through all $200,000. Needless to say, I was very mentally unwell. I can remember I had a townhouse, I had a car, I had all these materialistic things, but I couldn't pay my bills. I rented off my family, and my father came to the house to my doorsteps and said, "You owe rent." And I said, "I don't have it." His response was, and I'm grateful. Of course, then I was mad, but I'm grateful today. His response was, "I suggest you go to the homeless shelter then." And they kicked me out of my townhome. I started living in my car. When I was out of money, when I couldn't pay bills, my mental health was a mess. It got worse and worse because I didn't have a livelihood. I couldn't keep a job. I couldn't pay bills. I couldn't pay rent. I couldn't put gas in my car. I had a car, but I didn't have money for gas. Yes, it definitely affects your mental health and makes it unwell. I agree. So earlier, we talked about Kentucky Comeback. Zach, if you could put that in the chat one more time. And then also the link to the employer resource guide will be on the Kentucky Comeback. So this is an employer resource guide with lots of things included, and Sonia will tell you what's included in that resource guide. But I want you to know that Sonia, myself, and our team worked on this for about 3.5 months for you, the employer, for you, the HR specialist, the supervisor, the manager, to have everything wrapped up with a bow on it. Because if you want to change your culture or look at your benefits or your policies and procedures, where do you go? Do you go on the internet? Do you Google something? Do you Google change my policies and procedures to be a fair chance employer? Well, I promise you that will take you about 3.5 months. That's why we did the work for you. So here it will be hosted on the employer resource guide, and Sonia will tell you the different things that are in that guide.
So here's the content of the guide. And under each of these categories, there's lots of content. Under that content, there's blue words that have links that we have partnered with individuals to give you additional information concerning whatever topic we're discussing. So outline here, we talk about the culture, your background, your drug screens, your retention. Like, what does that look like? How are you retaining your employees? Are you have employee engagement? How are you recruiting? Are you tapping into certain pipelines, or are you missing those pipelines? Policies and procedures go in. I'll go into that here in a minute. Education pieces that we've inserted in there that you can use to change that culture. Training, if you want training for your organization, you go on the training page at the bottom. There's a form that you can complete and you submit it, and it comes straight to Ashley and myself, and we can go into your organization and do these trainings for your leadership teams. We talk about benefits and, the questions to ask your benefit administrator, those hard ones about the utilization reports, and then additional resources with all the partners that we work with. So it's really packed full of tools that you can use on a day-to-day basis. We also ask you to start before you go in and look at the assessment form that we created. It gives you it helps you to examine your organization and shows you where those opportunities are that you need to change to get your culture where it needs to be conducive to for your employees to open up and to talk about that.
I'm not going to talk a lot about this because I talked about it earlier, but those educational flyers, stigma, mental health, substance use disorder, employee engagement, print them out, hang them up, download the PDF, put them in emails, monthly newsletters, put them up on the TV, whatever you want to do, they're there for you to utilize. And that's in the employer resource guide under, oh goodness, Sonia.
Well, they're under two areas. I think there's some under retention and some under recruiting.
Education.
And education, yes.
They're under education, for those of you who are asking where they're at in the employer resource guide, education.
So these policies and procedures that I alluded to just now, what we did with these is we gathered some policies and procedures and we kind of looked at the format, the verbiage, the wording. SHRM was a huge part of this for me because I'm a huge SHRM advocate. And so we put together these policies and procedures that you can use. You can customize them. You can insert your logo and your name and use it however you see fit. These have been approved by our legal team. We do encourage you, if you use these, we would like for you to let your legal team review them as well, in case it's applicable to something needs to be applicable to your industry specifically. So we're going to talk about who's hiring. And Zach will put a link. We have a who's hiring job board. So if you have any positions that are open in your industry, we encourage you to go on this link and post these jobs. These jobs are updated every Tuesdays and Thursdays, and they are posted across our state. We also have a fair chance hiring. So if you're a fair chance employer, you can post on that job board as well, and it will go across the state. This is easy to if you have someone searching, they can use the Heidi Hires bar, and they can put a keyword in there, and they'll bring up all the job descriptions or job offerings that have that word specifically attained to them. And again, it's from Paducah all the way to Eastern Kentucky that these jobs are spread across our state. Buzz to Biz. This is a statewide initiative focusing on connecting students with employers. And what happened here last year, 2019 was the inception, and students went into businesses and toured their businesses to get a look in career paths and what it took to be like an engineer or a CPA, or to work in manufacturing, or to work at Toyota, wherever that industry was. There was 1,200 students that participated in that program in 2019. For 2020, they had to pivot to a virtual platform. With that virtual platform, we are now serving over 10,000 students on this program. And we have virtual events on Wednesdays where students and teachers and employers can register, and they come in, they listen to whatever the job, the organization that's given their presentation. So it's various ones. We have equine, we have construction, we have manufacturing, we have engineering. So they give a presentation about how to become an engineer, what that education level looks like, and how those students can build a career path through this program, and helps the counselors to help the students understand that career path. TPM, this is an employer-led and demand-driven approach for businesses to create and manage supply chains by projecting talent needs and aligning those with education and workforce development. So we have project managers across our state that work with employers. Hi, Zach, would you like to talk about this?
Sure.
Yes, go ahead.
All right. So I'm the project manager for our region, for the Northeast, Northern Kentucky, and Timco. And this is my bread and butter. This is what I work on. I make sure that we get solutions for employers. And what's really great about this project that I think sets it apart from other workforce solutions that you may have seen is that it is employer-led, and the employers are at the center. I think often with workforce solutions, the employers are ultimately excluded from the conversation. But with talent pipeline management, we put the employers, at the center of the conversation. So if you're interested in that, it's data driven. So we don't talk in hypotheticals. We're using actual data that comes from you and your region. So if you're interested in that, give me a call.
Thank you, Zach. So call to action. We can't end without a call to action. So go to the Kentucky Comeback website, join the network. That way you can be updated on whether it's substance use disorder, mental health disorders, or the previously incarcerated, fair chance for those individuals. Just join the network. It's as soon as you log on. I'm sure some of you have already got on there, but apply the resources. So the employer resource guide, don't just look at it, let's utilize it. Let's apply these resources within our organization. And if you need assistance, that's exactly why Sonia and myself are here. We can be one-on-one assistance with you, whether it's policies and procedures, benefits, changing that culture. That's what we're here for. So please contact us, email us, call us. And then we always say that we're here to change the hearts, the minds, and the bottom lines of organizations. So I'm sure I can sometimes, with my story, whether it's substance use disorder or mental health, I can pull on individuals' heartstrings or maybe change their minds just a little bit, crush that stigma. But let's look at the bottom line. Let's look at the bottom line of your organization as well. What does this do whenever you're talking about mental health or you're talking about substance use disorder? I'll tell you what it does. If you're not sweeping it under the rug, then it's going to increase, or if you are sweeping it under the rug, it's going to increase your costs, risk, and liabilities to your organization by not talking about it. So imagine what it can do if you have it out in the open, if you're hanging these flyers, utilizing this resource guide, having Sonia and myself come in for training for your supervisors or managers. It's only going to affect your bottom line in a positive way. And then I want to say this. We did a presentation the other day, and there was, I've been thinking about this, Sonia. There was a picture of Robin Williams. I'm sure you all know who Robin Williams is. I'm sure you're also aware that he was an individual who was funny, laughing, always telling jokes, and he successfully committed suicide. And above that picture of Robin Williams, it said, "Everyone you meet is fighting a battle that you know nothing about, so be kind." And I just want to leave you with that on the end of this presentation. Be kind, because you don't know what kind of battle people are fighting. Because at the beginning you heard that struggle can be covered up by smiles and grins and cheerful expressions and funny jokes. I know I do that to cover it up. So just be kind, because you never know what someone's going through. Oh, this is us. In case you haven't seen us for the past hour and so many minutes with our cameras on, here we are again. But no, take a picture of this or with your cell phone or something. Get our email addresses, get our phone numbers, call us, contact us for training or one-on-one assistance. We would love to help your organization.
And we're going to ask you to complete a survey, and Zach's going to put that link inside of the chat box. And what this survey is going to ask you about what you've learned today in your interest of our programs. We encourage you all to just go and fill that out real quickly. It'll take maybe 2 minutes of your time. That way we can improve our programs and where we need to, because we do a lot of these presentations. And so where we lack, we want to improve. So we ask for you to participate in that. And if you have any questions right now, we'll be glad to take those or any comments before we, I think we also have SHRM CEUs that we need to share with you.
Yes, please guys, fill out that survey, because we want to hear your feedback. We want to hear your comments. It's not a survey, just please click on it. Give us some comments. Let us know what we can work on, what we can do better, or what you liked about the presentation. So please do that survey. And then Sonia, did you want me to go to the next slide, or you want to wait for questions?
Yeah, let's do questions and see if they have any, and then we can move on to that.
Guys, I would love, we would love to hear your questions. We would love to hear comments, anything that you want to say to us. Just unmute or type it in the chat. Let us know what you think. Anybody? No one has no questions or comments.
This is a scale of COVID impact on mental health is overwhelming. How do we handle that scale?
Yeah, I think a good way to start to tackle that question is where do we get started? Thinking of positions that I've been in as a manager before, I realize I need to make a course correction, but I haven't done this before. And so how do I even get started with something like this?
And I think this presentation gave a lot of information to do that. You know, to set that foundation on how to have those conversations. I think a lot if I were in the HR role currently, I would definitely have that foundation set for my managers so that they would all be on the same page and they would all be talking about the same thing on how to handle this if this should come up in our individual organizations, because you definitely don't want to be inconsistent with these type of conversations. You want to ensure that your employees trust and there's consistent across the board with confidentiality and everything that's surrounding that, because you know this is a private thing to them and they're bringing it up to you and they trust that you're going to take it in the right direction and give them the right direction on, you know, where's that treatment and how can you help me, what is our benefits, how does the benefit option help me with this. And even if it's a family member too, it's even more sensitive if there's a family member involved too. So as an industry, you need to look at it as a whole and how you want to handle that, because, you know, COVID is, I'm sure it's going to be a minute before we will see where all this is going to go. And we want to make sure that our mental health is definitely in check. And that's the reason why we did this presentation, was solely because we were asked to do that flyer, that mental health flyer that we showed you at the beginning of COVID. And then it just kind of built off that to help employers understand the mental health piece and how it works in the workplace.
Peter, I was gonna kind of talk to your question as well. I was gonna say, in my professional opinion, no, in my opinion, I think that you should start with the culture
Mm-hmm.
of the organization, and the impact that this is having on mental health. So no one's going to come forward or talk about mental health or substance use disorder or the impact that COVID is having on that mental health if that culture is not there. And that's why when Sonia was talking about like the flyer on mental illness, you know, sending out the flyers, or also she was talking about your managers and supervisors, so you can handle this by training those managers and supervisors, for example, with this presentation that we did today, because it starts from the top up and it has to trickle down. So your supervisors, your managers, your CEO, whomever has to be supportive of this culture and has to be in support of having unashamed conversations about mental health or about substance use disorder. I encourage all of you to start with that culture and start with managers and supervisors, HR, the C-suite, and introduce these trainings to them, because we have trainings on substance use disorder, mental health, addiction in the brain, and then the to disclose, not to disclose, which focuses on stigma within the organization. And I promise you, we just did a training 4 days in a row. And I know that because we've had feedback from the upper level management, I know that we crushed some stigma. I know that we changed hearts and minds, and they are definitely changing some things with that organization to affect their bottom line in a positive way. So please contact us. We'll come in and we'll train your managers and supervisors for you.